I appreciate your time. We're going to talk about the course Survivors Who Thrive. The origin of this course is really from resiliency. And while resiliency isn't the only thing and really doesn't even create the focal point of everything that happens in Survivors Who Thrive, it really does provide the background. And much of the research that you're going to see had its start, at least, in resiliency. Now it's changed over time, but I really want you to understand that there is a very positive way to be able to help children become or be the very best that they possibly can, and to have an environment where they are indeed the best that they possibly can be. So the very first thing we want to look at is, really, does this apply to me? I don't want you to be wasting your time, but in reality, if you're around children at all, it definitely applies to you. If you're the classroom teacher, obviously it applies to you. Not just from the how can I make a difference academically with my kids perspective, but how can I make a difference with kids perspective? A very different idea there. Looking at it from a youth services worker standpoint, whether you're in an out-of-school time program or whether you're working in a summer program, really doesn't matter what the role is and what the environment is. It's important that we know how we can make a difference and what difference we can actually begin to make. Also understanding that if you're in daycare or preschool, if you're in that environment, the effect that you have and the effect that you can have is truly significant, and you can make and do make a significant difference in the lives of these children. And I'm going to share with you some of the detail, some of the most recent detail that we know and understand about brain research and what's happening with children, and how that affects their lives academically. All of this begins to matter. Whether you're an extended family member, you certainly make an impact in a child's life in that environment. But again, the world is not the same as it was when we grew up. So we have to understand what are the challenges and what are the opportunities that we have with children today. If you're faith-based and you're working with children from a faith-based environment, you too make a huge difference. If you're talking about it from just a mom or dad perspective, what is it that we can do as a mom and dad that can have an impact with our kids that maybe we didn't understand? So all of these individuals represented on your screen, everything that I've talked about, there's something for everyone. So please, I encourage you to stick with this, to please make this a part of your interaction with children. You'll find that it makes a difference. The very first thing that we're going to focus on in this course is to look at, are we ready? Are we ready to be this parent? Are we ready to be the grandparent or the aunt or uncle who has the impact? Now, in a family situation, if that child already exists, are we ready is a moot point. You've got to be ready, so it'll help you know what to do. Now, if you're someone who works with children outside of the family, then there's certain things in there that it's not just a job. We really have to understand the impact that we have and the opportunity that we have and what it is that we do with children and how that makes a difference. So the next part of this, I'm really not trying to depress anyone or bring you down, but I really want you to understand what the world has become and how that impacts the lives of the children that we work with. Some of this research is going to go back quite a ways, but it's still very applicable. And some of the research that you're seeing that goes back quite a ways, I'm showing it to you for a perspective, because when we get into the course, you're going to understand that if this was like this then in 1992, imagine what it's like today. If it was like this in 1989, imagine what it's like today. So I really want you to get a perspective of the social, emotional development of children and how that impacts their lives. I really want you to get a perspective of the risk factors that children have and what they tend to do with that if they're a part of these things, because this is all what they're up against. This is what people who work with children, people who have children, are battling every single day. Not to mention what happens academically with these kids, not to mention what happens with their abilities in school to do well, and from the abilities of school to do well, what happens over time. And when we look at these children as they transition from elementary school into middle school, junior high, high school, and then finally adulthood, what happens with these kids if they don't get what they need early on, if we're not impacting them as we possibly can when they're young, what happens with them as they get older? So again, all of the things that I'm sharing with you, I'm not sharing with you these things so that you can get depressed as to what children are facing today, or to feel overwhelmed as one who works with these children, but I truly want you to understand the impact that you can have and the importance of having that impact in their lives and in the lives of all of the people that they will touch as well. Because it truly does go beyond what happens in school. It goes beyond anything that we've considered in the past. So please understand that the first part of what I'm going to try to do with all of you, in fact, the first 2 modules of this 6-module course are all about the emotional aspect of ourselves, helping us to understand where we're at and what we can do for ourselves so that we can be in the best position to help children. And then to understand the enormous odds that many of the children that we have today are under, so that we can begin to truly help them. So I'll leave that there. I don't want to make it any worse. So I'll leave the research till we get to the research module and move on. And when we talk about what is it that makes a difference, here's where it starts. The first thing that we have to understand is that culture matters. Now, I'm not talking about culture as in race or ethnicity. I'm talking about culture of an environment. So whether it's the culture of the family, or whether it's the culture of the environment where children are, the school or the after-school program or whatever it is, that culture makes an enormous difference. And when we look at culture, I characterize it into staff, structure, and setting. So if we're talking about an organization that works with children, we're talking about staff, structure, and setting of that organization, and how those 3 things combine to make up the culture or the environment in which all things happen around children. So as we understand the importance of that, and as we understand how to alter that and to benefit children, that's where it can make a powerful difference. If we're talking about the family, then the word staff just becomes members of the family. Those are people within the family. So culture matters, and how we work with that culture, or what we do with that culture, makes a huge difference. We're going to talk about children, but we're going to talk about children from a strength perspective. Not everything that's going on that is bad, but we're really going to talk about what's right. And we're going to talk about what's right, not what's wrong. We know what's wrong with kids. We know where things can lead. I just showed you several pages of statistics that tell us where things are headed. But what we need to focus on is what's right. Focus on the strengths, build the strengths, so that we can minimize the weaknesses. And I'm going to share with you how to do that. We need to talk about what it is that we're truly after. What is it that we're trying to get as a result? Because ultimately we need to get results. So if it's in an academic or a school setting, we have to know what results we're truly after. If it's in an organizational setting outside of school and outside of the family, we need to know what results we're really after. And are we aligned to be able to get those results? Do we have everything in place in order to make that happen? Critically important. Now, beyond that, we need to understand that there is a structure to getting result. And so I'm going to teach you that structure from the discovery phase through the execution process, but not just going straight from one to the other. We first have to determine, is it going to last? Is it going to be sustained? Does it fit for us? Is it going to work for our kids? Does it even apply to our kids? We have to know all of those things going in so that we can know whether or not this is right for us to do. So when we talk about survivors who thrive, there's two ways to get this information. One way is to get the online version, the course version of this, if you would. There are 6 modules in the course, and you simply walk through the modules, and as you do so, you're learning all along the way. You're learning from 2 different levels. My intent is to touch you emotionally and intellectually. I know that if I can drive these things emotionally inside of you, that you're going to take the intellectual components that apply most to the children that you work with, and you will make a difference. Even more of a difference than you're already making. So I know that if we can truly get inside, that's where the biggest differences are made. So we spend a lot of time, energy, and effort working on the emotional aspect of this, getting it deep inside of you. The second way to get the information is to schedule for me to come out and work with your staff, or to just do a training if you'd like, but in some way begin to have the impact with you personally, which is where I love doing this work, and I feel it's where I'm best at doing the work, because when I can look into people's eyes, when I can see what they're struggling with themselves, and when I can see the interest that they have and the love that they have for the children that they work with, I can get in there. I can teach them best by getting into them emotionally. And so I really would love to have that opportunity with you. So if that's the best thing for you, great. If not, let's go to the online stuff and at least get that. And again, whether you're a parent, grandparent, doesn't matter to me. Just get the information, get started, and make a difference in the lives of the children that you're with. Thank you so much for all that you do. I look forward to seeing you on the inside, or ultimately look forward to seeing you live face to face so that I can work with you in that way. Thank you so much. Have a great day.